We celebrated these things when I lived in England. That was 1,000 years ago, when I was up to 7 years old. But we celebrated all of these things in school. We had the feasts. So as I looked into the websites that follow me, and as I set my intention, I sit down to my computer, and my guides always tell me all the right websites to go to. And we usually start with Wikipedia and then add several more to it. And I began to understand what this man was all about. And he lived about 200 years after St. Patrick. And he was born to a working woman when he came to me in meditation, he said that he was not born of their marriage, that it was an act of violence, as he called it. And so as he lived his life in Wales, being born illegitimate, he always felt as though he was less than worthy as those that were born into traditional families. And he felt like this was his calling then to make himself more worthy, and so he entered the priesthood. He worked his way up and became a bishop, and was even made an archbishop by the patriarch in Jerusalem at the time. He was renowned for, at his monasteries, they didn't use oxen. He made all of his priests plow the fields themselves because he believed in making a contribution and not being lazy. He was the first vegetarian bishop. He made the monastery eat leeks and bread and water, and they took no cheese, no milk, or ate no meat. So he's considered to be the patron saint of vegetarianism. He lived from 500 AD till 589, and if you can imagine at that time frame, to live to 89 years old was a really long life. And the legends say he lived for hundreds of years. Of course, those are just embellishing on the fact that to die at 89 years old was very unusual in that time. And also a lot of his monks lived that long as well. They exercised from not being lazy. And when they weren't exercising out in the fields, and they weren't doing the one evening meal of water, leeks, and vegetables, and bread, they were praying. And all of the monks in his monasteries had these long lives that went to it. So they exercised, they meditated, or they prayed, and they ate a vegetarian lifestyle. One meal a day. They had one meal at the end of the day. So they would work all day in the fields. They would then pray. They would have their one evening meal and then go back to prayer.
So it was like fasting every day?
In a way, it was like an all-day fast, yeah. They do it in Ramadan fast now. They fast all day. And this was the lifestyle. And in that time, 600 AD, when you had dysentery, and that meant all the things that were killing people when they were in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, they all lived until they were in their 80s and 90s. And so when I was reading about him, and I was learning about him, and he practiced asceticism, which many of them did in those times. When I tuned into him after, and this is usually my process, I do all my internet research, kind of get an idea of who they are, and then I tune in, I do my meditation. And as I tuned into him, this image came in, and he was, of course, by the time he died at almost 90, he was a very thin, frail man. And so this monk came in, and he was very covered, and it was all brown, and he was very thin. And the first image I got was simply this, I didn't even know it looked like a man at first, it was this monk, and he was very shy. And I said, hello. And he kind of looked, and I heard him sort of telepathically saying, I've never been called in to talk before. He said, people pray to me, and they ask me for things. He said, but I've never actually been called in to have a communication like this. And so I sensed he was very shy, and I said, well, maybe I could talk to his higher self. And then his higher self came in and was very chatty. And I said, talk to me, tell me about who you are and what message you have. And the first thing he did was he kind of put me on hold for a second, and he went and he took his energy to Wales, and he said, I want to see what my homeland looks like. And he came back and he said, it looks very different from when I was there. But I had seen an image of the abbey at Pembroke, which was his monastery where he was buried, and I had seen a picture of that on the internet, and I said to him, I said, but your monastery is still there? And he goes, yes, he said, it's still standing. He said, but the people around it are very strange. And I but is there a message that you can give me? Talk to me about who you are and what it is that you would like to say. And he said, this world is so different where you are. And I was kind of having trouble getting him to focus because he was kind of like this and he wanted to just see everything. And he said, there's so much. And he sort of said, and he didn't even have a word for it. What he meant was sort of consumerism. But he said, there's just so much to take in. And he showed me, he didn't have the words, but what he was actually describing was kind of a gluttony. And he said, there's just so much food and so much things to take in. And he said, how do you cope? He said, it just seems like too much. And I said, well, that's what we're trying to do. And I sort of gave him an energetic imprint of the people that come here. And I said, these are the people that gather in our community, and we're trying to move actually into a place that more similarly resembles what you're talking about. One of the things that he said in his practice was he never allowed any of his monks to use the word mine. They weren't allowed to use my robe or my book. Everything was ours, or that which was given. And so he didn't allow that kind of possessiveness of things, not because he didn't want them to own something, but he didn't want them to start getting attached to things. And so he was very unique, because if you remember, the church in those times, if you weren't of noble birth, the church was the place where you went to get your political career. And so the church was the place where you went to have fancy robes and gold and servants. And so he was very different from most of the men of cloth in that time. He's very pious. So I'm checking into his energy, and he's saying, tell the group of people that you work with to be calm, to be quiet, to detach from material things, to not partake of the flesh of God's creatures. And what he meant was the vegetarianism. And to lead a peaceful life and to spend time in prayer. And he said, at our monastery, we did that exclusively. He said, to set the example for those that were around. He said, not many people listened, but at least they came and they did their prayers. And so he brought in, he was very shy. By the end of the meditation, he was very chatty. And then it was no longer his higher self, but it was actually him talking. It was almost like he had to hold his higher self to talk to me. And then he got very chatty towards the end, and he kind of lifted his hood down, and then he was a little bit more in his presence. But I thought it was so cute. We tend to think of people in spirit form as being so highly developed and evolved, and they are, but yet their personalities, the energy, because of course 1600 years is nothing to them. There was no, time isn't linear. So to him it was though he had simply just passed yesterday. And his shy personality, his quietness was coming in. It was such a personal conversation. It was really lovely. So he'd like to share that with you. To detach. And to simply go within yourselves. And we know that when monks in these monasteries, when they go in there, not that they denounce their families, but they detach from them. Because they know being of service is the highest and best good. So they detach from wealth and ownership and anything that's of high value. And I'm not suggesting that you all go out there and live that kind of lifestyle, but simply hold on to some of the values and ask yourself, what are you holding on to? And is it really real, or is it an illusion? And that was what he talked about in his expressions. And there was a monk that was about 100 years living after him that went through all of his writings and did a biography of him. And they talked about how he was just very solemn and very peaceful, but he was also very non-judgmental. He wasn't one of these, they said that usually monks in those times, they would get up and they would talk about very, sort of, do this and do that, and he wasn't that kind. He was all about joy. And everything, even he knew he was dying, in his very last service that he gave, he was talking about having joy in your life and finding peace in whatever that looks like to you. And you know the things in your life that are causing you peace. And we all have family drama or spouse drama or work drama. And we get so caught up in the drama of those things. And while I was kind of down for the count this last week, I spent 5 days at home and, did a lot of remote controlling and a cup of some tea. But I was really thinking about what was causing me to be sick. And I did do a 4-day vegetable cleanse. It's a new company. It's called Nectar, and you can go and get the vegetable juice cleanse. It's 6 bottles a day, and each day is equivalent to 15 pounds of fruits and vegetables. So for 4 days, I had the equivalent of 60 pounds of fruits and vegetables. And it raised the vibration of my body so high in that 4 days that what I thought was a cold was actually simply my immune system rejecting anything that wasn't that high of a vibration. Because it didn't feel like a cold, it just had the symptoms of it. So I sort of hacked and I wheezed and I coughed for all these days, and my throat was arrested. I actually had no voice for that first day and a half. And so I'm asking myself, okay, there's drama that's coming up, there's feelings that I'm purging, and it has to do with things that don't belong, and what part of me thinks I have no voice with these things. And so I had to really sit and ask myself, where do I feel like my voice is getting arrested? What am I attaching to? What drama am I engaging in? What am I allowing myself to get distracted to? And of course the card I got this morning was the perfect one. That was the answer for that. And as I was feeling better, I wasn't going to come to the Holistic Healing Fair yesterday, and out of honor, Tommy said, stay home and get some rest. I'm like, no, I feel like I need to go. There's a reason why I'm going. And I got here, and Marcy Cheek was in the back with her tuning forks, and she said, your immune system is completely overreacting. And she pulled out her tuning forks, and she did some notes, and she put it all around me, and I could feel my body vibrating, and I felt my immune system calming down. And I immediately felt about 50% better in just a 15-minute session with her, and I can feel it's calming down now. I'm just beginning to relax again. So where's the drama? What am I attaching to? Let's ask yourself. Let's call in St. David. He's here. He's primed up. He's not shy anymore. If there's something in your life that you would like to have detached from, more peace, more calm. If you'd like guidance on having a more vegetarian lifestyle, or one that is detaching from things that you're owning and holding on to, material things, or if you'd like to have more time to meditate and be in touch with that part of you, or all of them, he's here and he's happy to work with you. And so let's call him in. That's the way we're telling you. Just for a few minutes, because I want you to be able to participate in coming in. Just kind of set us off. So, and if you aren't comfortable with the resonation, if you feel St. David coming in and it's not really an energy that you're resonating with, just call in your guides or your guardian angels. It doesn't really matter. Your spiritual journey is your personal one. So we're just going to relax and we're going to call in St. David. St. David of Wales. Feel his energy coming in. You may see a very tall, slender gentleman in a brown monk's outfit. His hood may be over his head. He may have dropped it back. He's very gentle. He's very graceful. If you so choose, invite him in. Ask him to stand before you and show you his ways. And anything that he has, any kind of wisdom or heartfelt devotion, feeling, connectedness to the divine, if there's anything that he can share with you right now that would allow you to bring in more peace in your life, more centeredness, more calm, more focus, more conviction, things you'd like to change, detachment from material possessions, detachment from family drama. gentle, quiet, joy-filled, peaceful life. This was the message he gave his brothers in the monastery and all of those in the parish that would come to talk to him. This was his message: live a peaceful, joy-filled life. Devote yourself to something that you believe in. Find something that you can have faith in. Something that has meaning to you. Something that gives you clarity, wisdom, peace, joy. Find some doctrine or creed of your own, not necessarily following anybody else's doctrine or creed, but creating that which resonates with you. Find one that aligns you to the universe, the divine spirit within you. Do this with self-forgiveness and love, not marking any deviations of your own creed with self-judgment, but with understanding and forgiveness. Be gentle with yourself. Take your time. Breathe fresh air. Move your body. Above all, be kind to yourself and those that are surrounding you. These are the words of a brother or sister of society. Think of yourself as you also think of others around you. Be a part of the community, the good of the all. Above all, be at peace with yourself and know you are a divine instrument, a conduit, a channeled energy. You are unique, and you are blessed, and you are loved. Take this into your heart. Let it rewrite every aspect of your DNA so that all of the cells that get created carry this DNA blueprint with them of love and peace, going beyond yourself. See the greater picture of the universe. Be a part of that. Hold that energy in your heart. His parting words are, above all, choose a peaceful life for yourself. Choose peace. These be my parting words to you, brothers and sisters of love and light, to choose peace for yourselves. We thank him for being with us today and carrying his words in our heart. Setting any intentions that you have. Being of creative energy, choosing peace. Choosing peace is an empowered choice. Choosing peace says you are above the minutiae and the drama and the physical attachment. Choosing peace requires a higher vibration to resonate within you at all times. Choosing peace does not allocate right or wrong, or credit or blame, or good or bad. It simply resonates in peaceful existence. Allowing that to go into your heart, permeate every cell of your body, creating a new paradigm for you to step into. Knowing there is a oneness to this vibration and energy. there are some Ascended Master cards up here in the front row. If you came in late and didn't get one, looks like Anna will be kind enough to share one with you. And if one flies off the deck in front of you, it's yours. If two come out of the pack, it's yours. There are no mistakes. I think Pearl has one, and I think Susie and Wendy one. You can keep these as a private message and just return them at the end, or I'll be happy to give you a message interpretation if you want. Oh, would you share those over here to your right? So how many people felt St. David come in? Did you feel his presence? Such an energy of conviction and simplicity. It was just, we don't live lives, our lives are pretty chaotic. Can you imagine living as he did for probably 70 years of his life, if not 75? Usually you enter monasteries around the age of 15. So for probably 75 years, to live this life of such peace, it's hard for us to even fathom what that would feel like, isn't it? But we can. Just because we don't live in a monastery doesn't mean that we can't live with that kind of peace. That isn't the only way to have that. Did anybody feel a shift towards what it would feel like to live that kind of life?
I have a insight. I've been worried for a few years about being a vegetarian and if I eat, if I don't get all the right nutrients and hearing the story of how he ate only one meal a day and spent a lot of time in prayers and coming back from India where there were saints who sat in caves for 30 years and didn't eat or drink and it just really gave me the message that prayer and being in that place of connecting with the divine is really, it feeds everything. It's more than anything. And anything else is mental and worry. And so that was a big thing.
Yeah, he lived a very healthy life from what I understand. And what you're describing is the theory behind breatharianism.
Right.
That you get all of your nutrients from sunlight and air. I don't suggest anybody give up food because if you don't, you have to be in a vibrational belief system that you know without a shadow of a doubt that you're getting that kind of energy and nutrients from the sun. Because if you believe you need to eat, then of course, there will be an issue for you. But yeah, prayer and devotion, you set yourself open. It's easy to poo-poo that and say, no, we're human beings, we need to eat. Well, isn't it light that feeds the plants? And then it's that light that's in the plants that feeds the animals, or so we take in that light which has gone from the sunlight to the plant to the animal, or from the plant directly to us. It's photosynthesis. So we just have to get past the idea that it has to actually come in a physical form that goes in our mouth. It doesn't. If the light feeds the plant, and the plant grows from the light and the water, so can we. Because aren't we molecularly in tune to the same vibration of living plants? So,
There's a book that one of the breatharians wrote that is kind of a training on how to become one, and there's steps. And I've met actually a lady who eats only on the weekends and very little. Like she doesn't eat 5 days a week at all. And she's very healthy looking, and she's been following that book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read a little bit about it. You spend time a couple of times a day looking into the sunlight, not at the most intense times, and really focusing on the sun and absorbing the energy. And it can take a year to work up to where you can able to do it. So it's a process.
So that's a scenario, like the people that get fed by the sun. It's still different than breatharian. Breatharian don't need the sun. Yeah.
Well, good. It's a problem. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Think if we could have that concept, what our world would look like. if we didn't have to spend all that time and energy creating food and creating things. And when you watch these programs on Netflix about, Forks Over Knives and Vegucate, and there was one that I saw recently that said that when you raise a pig for slaughter, that the debris the pig makes over his lifetime is something like 6 times that of a human. And then we actually have to find some place to put and process everything that the pig has, gotten rid of it, extricated, just to get that on our table. What did he say to me?
He just was kind of silent and he was holding my hand and just felt the warmth and the love and then when the message was over, he just kind of put his foot back on and went back. And
He had a very modest kind of
Very
cute
humble.
energy. Yes, very humble, very modest, very cute. But he was excited to be here. Yes. He was happy to come out. Okay, does anybody have anything that they would like to have interpreted on their cards? No? Yeah, Kim's been dancing. What is your card?
Lakshmi.
Lakshmi. Okay. So just like we were talking about before, she's coming in to remind you and me and everyone here to call her in with her sisters, to call in Kali and Saraswati when you call her in. And that you do need to clear some old beliefs that are blocking you on having that flow come in. And it's around self-worth, that you actually are completely and totally worthy of earning the kind of income and having the flow that is actually out there on the ethers waiting for you. So you need to clear blocks on it being okay for you to have that kind of a nice, easy flowing income. Do you have beliefs around you have to work hard to get your money? Okay. Yeah, that's, so she's saying to create different balance in that area and to allow building blocks to come in. And she's also saying for you to start thinking about ways where you can create an annuity rather than always it's work, get paid, but create some kind of annuity where money is flowing in without you actually have to be redundant. She's saying, looks like DVDs or CDs on technique for massage and bringing in some of the things that you do to create a product. Pardon?
You can do it like Angel Michael.
Archangel Michael, you can do it. Something you've been contemplating. It feels like a move. It feels like a physical move, either house or apartment. But it feels like there's something that you want to shift and change. It definitely feels like it's around your home. Are you contemplating moving your house?
Not really, there is someone moving closer to our house.
Okay, because it feels like there's a change around the house, and there's something that you want that you're kind of holding back on. You're putting your needs second, and this is never a good idea because if it's not something that you're completely tuned into, if you're giving away your energy to somebody else, it's going to start harboring some resentments and some feelings that you aren't speaking up for yourself. So the message is that around this move or this change around the house, to really speak up for what's important to you while also considering the other person's feelings to make sure you create a win-win. That's what he's asking you to do. What do you have?
Persistence.
I'm sorry, who's the master? Luke. Oh, yes, okay. And he's saying persistence? You've been making some changes inside your home. It feels like with your spouse, and that you've been gaining some ground with some of your new ideas, and to be patient, to continue with what you're doing, but more importantly, this is about, rather than trying to convince someone of what your thought process is now, in order to have them validate you, to have your own validation, so that you're not looking for outside validation. And the persistence here he's talking about is for you to believe in your heart what it is that you're opening your mind to, and to sort of just to continue to work on it, but to allow it to be in your own heart without looking at validation outside. Does that make sense? Anybody else? Susan?
Yes, and Ganesh.
Ganesh is saying yes.
Ganesh is saying yes.
You've been asking what to do with a career, and it feels like it's around your real estate. It feels like you've been asking if you should continue with this, and he's saying the answer is yes, that helping people find their homes is something that you have a beautiful forte, and it's really just for you to come in and know that that you can do it, that you can do it very well, that it can provide an income for you, and that for you just, he's saying, just be who you are, because who you are is so graceful and so kind and so warm. Does that make sense to you?
It was the last thing I expected you to say.
Oh.
But very interesting.
Okay. Let's just sit with it for a while. But he's saying yes to that career choice. He's saying yes to that career choice, and it's very empowering for you.
That's been on the way.
Oh,
Like 15 things have gone through my head today. That was not one of them.
but maybe you asked
Even when I
yesterday.
took my real estate signs out of my trunk of my car, last thing I was thinking about.
Maybe you asked yesterday or the day before. And time isn't linear. It could be a question that you're going to ask yourself tomorrow or the next week. But anyway, he's saying you have a gift in this area to help people. You have a gift in this area to help people, is what he's saying. Anybody else? Yes?
Right? Teacher.
Who is the master?
Right? Oh. The, I don't know how to pronounce it. Thought.
Okay, and he's saying teacher?
And thought. That's right. T-H-O.
Oh, yes, okay.
Thought. And the other one is
Oh, that's right, you got two. Teacher, what's the other one?
Cohen Rogers.
And I'm sorry, you need to speak up a little bit.
Well, I can't pronounce it.
Is it Rogasi?
Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. Mahakohen Ragazi and Thought. Oh, right. I thought you were saying R-I-G-H-T. Okay. Well, being a teacher and writing, of course, go hand in hand. Have you been contemplating writing a book where you're sort of an educational book of some kind?
I've been advised that I should do that, but I didn't see that.
Okay. You have they're both saying that you have a technical ability, and that's why you got the two cards, because they go hand in hand. That you've got some kind of an ability, something that you know about. And there is some more research for you to be doing in this area, but you've got an idea, and you are a natural teacher. You have a way of explaining things that allows people to understand them simply. You have a way of breaking things down and taking concepts and putting them in an order that allows people to understand. And that you're going to be working in an area, it feels like it's got some kind of sacred geometry to it, and some kind of sound resonance, where you're going to be getting some information and doing some research and putting this together. And I'm not sure if it's for children. It feels more like for maybe tweens, sort of. Is that the age group that you work with?
Hearing, not children, but young adults.
Yeah.
Young adults.
Yeah.
That's been resonating for years, but I've never known what to do with it.
Yeah, you have it. They're saying that you have a really beautiful, simple nature of being able to just deliver concepts that make it easy for them to understand, and that you give great concepts, but in a simplified form, and you don't do it with any kind of condescension, and so you're perfect to work with young children, because they can be very timid when they open up to new ideas, but you have the perfect energy to work with them. Yes?
Freedom? Is it higher?
From
Hina? H-I-N-A? Or is it Hina?
Okay. Are you in a job that you're not happy with?
No job.
No job? Do you feel like you're supposed to be in a job?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
I mean, the first energy that I saw was, it was like, I have to be, it's job, I have to work, I have to work, I have to work. And they're saying that you can have freedom from this. And it's not necessarily that you may not have a job, but freedom from the idea that you have to have one is what's blocking you from having one of your dreams or from having other income come in from other sources. So it's to release yourself, to free yourself from the idea of the pre-described ways that you think it has to happen. And so is it a certain career type, a certain skill that you have? So basically free yourself from this concept so that you can think outside the box. There's a lot of other possibilities for you. I'm seeing flowers. Something I'm seeing also, I'm seeing fields of flowers and colors, so maybe it has to do with being outside or nature or something, but I'm seeing like fields of flowers they're showing me. Different colors and bright sunlight. Anybody else? What do you have?
King Solomon, priorities.
Oh, that's a powerful card. Because we all know who King Solomon is, yes. Okay. He's saying there's balance. He's saying that he's showing me income, and he's showing me meditation and prayer and all the things that you're doing. And he's asking me to ask you to create a little bit more priority. This is unusual. For most people do more income producing things and errands and household chores and less prayer. And he's saying yours is actually quite a very strong direction. He's saying bring a little bit more balance to it. He's saying your head is in the cloud just a tiny bit more than what is good for you. He said it just take it down a tiny notch and bring in